And we're live. It is Saturday, April 18th, 2020. Boris Johnson, the Telegraph reports, is starting to take back control, having recently regained control of his lungs. We're not allowed to have fun anymore. It is, however, in Washington, it is a gorgeous spring day of the type where one would normally have fun, but in lieu of fun, it is just us hanging out, planning the show for the week.
Yeah, about that. You said it's really gorgeous in Washington right now. I'm going to share a picture that of what I woke up to this morning. Let's see if I can pull it up here quickly. That was my morning.
Wow.
Yeah. We woke up to like 2 inches of very, very wet snow.
I am not going to taunt you with actually, it was rainy and gross when I woke up, but it is really gorgeous now. So I have just noticed that in the audience today is a fellow whom the Chinese government once called some guy at NYU, Alvin Chung. Alvin's
a friend of mine.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy, and he's a very bright guy on subjects related to Hong Kong protests, which I may just promote him to a panelist so that we can, get a little update on what's going on in Hong Kong, and also who has shown up, but my son, Gabriel Wittes, who you asked to be here to talk a little bit about 3D printing masks, which he's been spending a lot of time doing. So Alvin, welcome to In Lieu of Fun. Gabriel, welcome to In Lieu of Fun. You should both, I'm going to unmute you both. So,
Alvin, it's so good to see your face. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. No complaints. Greetings from Kingston, Ontario.
Lovely.
So, Kingston, Ontario is not NYU.
It is not.
Which is probably good at this point. Before we talk to Gabriel about 3D printing and personal protective equipment, can you give us a little bit of, the last time I talked to you was on the Lawfare podcast, and the Hong Kong protests were going strong, and now COVID-19 seems to have done what the entire Hong Kong government has not been able to do. So give us an update. Where is the protest movement, and can we expect it to come roaring back when social distancing ends, or is this really, a casualty of the crisis?
Yeah, I'm just gonna scrounge around for a headset so I don't introduce too much background noise.
We're okay
totally
with
fine.
kids.
Okay.
There's no problem with background noise.
Yeah, and there's a dog in a cone over on this screen,
Yeah,
and then we're like my
post-op Gertie's surgery there, so we're totally chill on In Lieu of Fun.
Okay, alrighty. So the most recent developments, despite the COVID pandemic, are that within the last week, the central government's liaison office in Hong Kong declared that it was not subject to the control of the Basic Law, and declared that it was exempt from something called Article 22, which says, amongst other things, that the central government is not permitted to interfere in matters within the scope of Hong Kong's autonomy. So what we have here is essentially the central government declaring that as a matter of law, it can interfere in whatever matters within Hong Kong it pleases, which has been the de facto situation for some years now. It's just formalizing what has been true for a while. And the reaction to this from the Hong Kong government was very interesting. First, they released a statement saying that no, the liaison office is bound by Article 22. A few hours later, they revised it to omit any references to Article 22. And then a few hours after that, they released a third statement parroting the liaison officer's line. So that series of statements and the revision history quite strongly suggests that somebody at Beijing has been dictating to the Hong Kong government. So that's the first thing that happened this week.
Alvin, I'm really curious. I've been meaning to reach out to you, but there have been some things going on. I don't know if you're aware of them. But I guess testifying isn't the right word, but I was on a panel at the DOJ a few weeks ago, now I guess a month and a half ago, that was about kind of like, people saw it as like a lead up to the Earn It Act, which was going to basically, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but which would ban effectively end-to-end encryption and in the US, which is all that matters really, since all of these companies are mostly based in the US. And so I'm just curious if if people in Hong Kong are following that, because obviously the main kind of pro-democracy example that is thrown up now, and the power of end-to-end encryption messaging is in Hong Kong in the protests.
I don't know if there's specific concern with that legislation. There is certainly a lot of concern about communication security, because what is happening now is that every time the police arrest somebody, they seize their phone and they go through it and arrest everybody who was in the same Telegram group as them, for instance. So even if they're not familiar with specific legislative proposals, they are certainly much more aware of the issue than they have been in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so your impression is basically that COVID-19 has been an opportunity for China formally to end Hong Kong autonomy. Is it more complicated than that?
No, I think that is absolutely correct. So beyond the declaration that they're above the basic law, they've also called for national security legislation to end the threat of quote unquote separatism. There was a Reuters article recently about the increasing political pressure on judges. And of course, recently the police arrested, I believe the number's now 15 mainstream pro-democracy politicians and activists. So it's all coming to a head. I believe that, well, current indications are that the plan is to railroad national security legislation through the legislature before the elections to the Legislative Council that are due to take place in September. These elections are unlikely to be free or fair if they take place at all. And the reason for that is that the Hong Kong government has a track record of disqualifying anybody it doesn't like, usually on flimsy political pretexts.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you know this, Ben, but just to quickly fill you in, the last time I saw that little girl that was on Alvin's lap, she was like, yay, hello. She was this big. His wife, Alyssa, was in my year, the PhD program at Yale Law School. There were only 3 of us in the class and 1 dropped out. And so it was just me and Alyssa. Anyways, this is really kind of lovely to see everybody again.
Well, very cool. So thank you, Alvin, for that seriously depressing news, which I would have loved to not hear, but I suppose it's better to know it than not. And thanks for joining us, and please enjoy the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm afraid it gives me much less joy to be vindicated, but I'm glad that was useful.
Yeah, of such being right, a little goes a long way. So, Gabriel, Kate has so many questions.
Well,
Okay.
answer for you.
Okay, well, let's introduce you first. Gabriel, you are a very famous person on the internet at the moment. You started, we have talked about you on the show a few times. You have come up, I think, in like 3 or 4 different conversations around with medical, with healthcare economists, with doctors, just talking about the masks and the shortage for masks. Your dad kind of said that you guys were noodling around on this idea way back. And then all of a sudden you had a GoFundMe page and now you have more 3D printers than you can 3D print a stick to shake at them. And so I would love to hear, where is the count on the GoFundMe? How, like, what's your plan? Can you show us a mask? Put one on? Dial it, show, like, tell us everything.
So, well, let's see if I can remember those questions in order.
Oh yeah, you don't have to answer them all or any of them.
So currently the printer count is at 2. I'm trying to finalize a deal with Craft Unique to get between 10 to 15 more. We're not totally sure about numbers yet because there's some tax issues. They're sending me them straight from the factory in Budapest, so it's just getting a little complicated. So depending on how that all shakes out.
But tell us just a little bit about how this all started. Like, what did you decide? Like, tell us this to the people who haven't watched before. Tell us the story of like the masks and like what you decided to do and what this is all about.
So I want to say like 3.5 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago, I had just decided not to go back to work because I work a retail job and we are an essential business, but I didn't think it was really fair to the people in my life to do that. And so, I needed to find stuff to do. And my dad has this machine called a snap maker, which is like a 3-in-1 CNC carver, laser engraver, and 3D printer. And I made myself a shaving bowl on that. And then there's this site called Thingiverse, which is like a online platform for sharing different 3D models. And there were just a whole bunch of different designs for masks that were kind of floating around all over that. And so I printed one out and it came out really, really well. And then other people started asking me for masks. And so I was gonna make a bunch for friends and family. And then a couple nurses really liked them, and so I kind of perfected the design and hammered out how to produce them, and I took them to a local hospital, and the hospital wanted as many as they could get, so started the GoFundMe, and then it exploded.
That's so crazy. Can you show us one of them?
Yeah.
If you can stop petting Gurji for a moment.
Yeah, he's looking at me really sad.
So you can actually show the printer making them right now,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm doing. Here you go. My laptop, so it's a little awkward, but
No, cool.
Oh,
cool.
Right now.
That is so rad.
On the left side of the screen, hi, baby. Yeah, hi. On the left side of the screen, you'll see this is a new filament shipment that I just got in. I haven't worked with this before, and you can see it's not working all that great. And on the right side, this is Polyflex by Polymaker, which I've had time over the last couple of weeks to really get heat settings and extraction settings and kind of everything dialed in on, and that is coming out pretty damn flawlessly. There's a little
awesome
bit on the top, but it's like pretty much perfect. So
tell me, like, so it's an extruder. Is that like? So basically, there's two driven gears that so this piece of weather stripping is filament. My fists are the driven gears, and they're forcing the filament down against a nozzle, which is heated up to between 200 degrees Celsius to 250 degrees Celsius, depending on the filament.
It has a tiny little hole, which is about a 0.5 millimeter wide at the end. And so those gears push that filament down through that hole. It melts as it passes through the nozzle, and it extrudes it in a line or a circle, or, whatever coordinates you tell it to make designs just layer by layer by layer.
Super
And
cool.
they're really precise. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's-
So
what's the precision of the
Craftbot 3s? These two are precise down to 50 microns.
Wow.
One
That's so much better than I was expecting.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly precise.
Now, of course, that depends on nozzle size, right? So if it had a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, that would be 50 microns. The new machines that we're going to be getting in whenever we punch the order with Craft Unique, those are going to be good down to 25 microns.
Wow.
So they get crazy accurate. For my purposes, I'm actually much less concerned about dimensional accuracy and much more concerned about speed, because they don't have to look pretty. There are no threads on the design. There are no like super tight tolerances that need to be met. But we do need to be able to make as many masks as possible as quickly as possible. So I'm fitting them with 0.6 and 0.8 millimeter nozzles, so it can put out more filament at a time and speed it up. And yeah,
That's really smart. So I want to ask what the limiting reagent is, but before I do that, which is like basically like what piece of this, the machines, the material, the transportation of the masks, like what piece is the pieces holding you back? But one of the things that doesn't seem to be holding you back is the amount of money that you have to throw at this problem, which is great. So what is like, how much like have you raised now with GoFundMe? And like, I think I was talking to your dad earlier, where I'm just like on the phone. I was like, where are you guys going to put all of these? And he was like, yeah, we don't know. And I was like, well, part of the money, I guess, could be in like putting them on an empty floor, like somewhere. But I'm sure you could actually also crowdsource for office space to like get these up and running in.
Yeah. So I actually today, I think I can probably talk about this publicly now. I found a space where we're going to set the farm up at. It's kind of perfect. It's like this pretty old house in Tacoma Park, and it we'll be able to have one room dedicated to assembly and one room dedicated to sanitation, and then we'll have the printers upstairs. That way, we can have just a nice, starting at the top of the house and moving down the house workflow, and we'll be able to receive big filament orders through the front door and have volunteers come do deliveries through the back door. So it'll just be kind of well thought out, planning a space. But
yeah, that's super smart, actually. I mean, that's like a really, really great way to do it. I wouldn't even have like thought of that, but that's like a perfect way to do it if you're going to have a vertical space too.
Yeah. And I think, there are obviously like things that I'm not thinking of now that as the farm gets set up and, the assembly line gets started, will come to light. But that's kind of how I envision it right now.
Cool. So how much is the GoFundMe made at this point? It was $30,000 like a few days ago.
So we raised about $35,000 in the first 24 hours. Currently, it's been live since Wednesday night. We broke 50 grand last night.
Great.
I think it's like just over 50 now.
And how many requests do you have for masks?
So currently, we're going to be doing at least 100 this week to Holy Cross Hospital, and then one other institution, which I'm not going to name. And then there was another clinic in Frederick that had a shipment of N95 masks stolen. So I think
oh man,
launch out to them the week after. There's a clinic that my girlfriend's mom put me in touch with, which is just like 5 people that for some reason they're being denied PPE. The federal government is just being super, super weird about, what shipments of PPE they're stopping and redirecting and what they're not. And so it's just, for smaller institutions, it's really, really hard right now. So I think that's kind of the area where we're going to focus, social service institutions, smaller clinics.
Are you prepared for the types of for requests for masks from places you don't want to prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, so finding a volunteer to drive out to Frederick is going to be hard, you know. I think, you know, ideally I would like to stay as local as possible, but I also, you know, recognize that, you know, where we can do the most good is in the areas with the most need. And so you, I think, you know, it really does come down to the availability of myself and other volunteers to you know, drive out to make drops, and I don't
You're
really,
you're not contemplating shipping them?
maybe so that adds, you know, a level of complexity that at least now I don't have anything like a system in place for. But I think, you know, depending on first of all, if we were to do you know, delivery to other parts of the country through shipping, I would want to, you know, start kind of having those conversations once the farm was already set up, once we were
What are you imagining your capacity being once the farm is set up? Like how many masks a day?
so each printer can do 16 masks a day. So
That's if you work them 24/7,
yeah,
right? That's like basically if you don't sleep.
yeah. So realistically, it's probably going to be about 12 per day per printer. And we're talking about having between 12 and 17 printers, depending on how this deal shakes out. So, you know, 12 times 12 is 144 versus 12 times 17 is some number. Sorry, I dropped out of high school.
That's okay. I have like 8 degrees and I don't know what 12 times 17 is either off the top of my head. This is
It's somewhere
cool.
like I think it's somewhere realistically when the whole thing is up between 150 and 200 masks a day that you could realistically, like,
Yeah,
if you had a partner and you were both like, and you traded off so that there was somebody minding them 24/7, you could crank it higher than that. But it's not, you know, one of the things that these printers are not designed for mass production. They're designed for prototyping. And so you know, it's not the, like, you know, if you think about the way reusable masks are made, they're not made with 3D printers, right?
No,
They're
of course
made
not.
with, you know, in factories that produce them. And so it's not the most efficient way to do it. It's just the most efficient way to do it in your garage or in a house in Tacoma Park. And so I think it's a, you know, it's a, and look, it's a kind of a travesty that all of these public service organizations, I mean, everybody's talking about about hospitals, but there are homeless shelters, you know, that are, and food banks that where, you know, that are going to be real incubators for communicative disease. And I like you know, those places, somebody needs to be supplying those places. And so
I mean,
like,
I also like they're like my grocery store, like no one had masks, like or like a few of the workers did, but like most of them didn't. And they're in contact with the public all the time. They should be people that have masks.
yeah, and so that's kind of something that we're looking at. You know, how do we distribute to organizations that you know, can put masks in the hands of people who need them, right? So how do you balance, you know, need versus availability? And so at least right now, I'm kind of looking at entering the talks with organizations like DC Mutual Aid and you know, people who know how to distribute these in the most efficient way, in the way in which, you know, they're going to be most helpful.
Yeah. I just think this is so, I just think this is like a absolutely like awesome idea. I love that, you know, I mean, I think that it's, I mean, yes, these are not, Ben, your point is really well put that these are designed for prototype, not mass production, but like, until they aren't, until like you decide, I mean, until you put enough of them together to solve a problem for a localized community. And I think that that's like, for a local community, for a small community, and for underserved communities. And that's like, I don't know, kind of beautiful and great. And I think that it's a really great use of the technology, even though even though it's not what the technology was meant for necessarily. It's just a tremendous use of it.
I agree. And
you know,
sorry, go ahead, Gabe.
You know, there certainly are industries and use cases in which 3D printing is, you know, 100% used for end use products. Like, you know, most famously, Joseph Prusa manufactures all of, you know, the Prusa printers on Prusa printers, right? And that was kind of like the idea behind 3D printing as, you know, a consumer capable product originally, right? And like, you know, we have the RepRap project, which is, you know, the whole point is, can we make a machine that can make itself? And so I don't know that it's entirely true that they're not designed for end use products. It's just that very specific end use products lend themselves best to this type of manufacturing, and others like masks typically don't. And so, you know, the problem of, you know, how do you approach this in a way that's cost efficient, time efficient, and produces a quality product is, you know, a very real problem that I've learned a lot experimenting with.
Yeah, and the other thing that you're like, that I think is interesting about the mask that you're producing is that unlike a lot of you know, surgical masks or N95 masks, these are actually reusable. And, you know,
Is there a filter that goes with them? I'm assuming.
So the idea is that a single surgical mask can be cut into pieces and used as a filter in more than one.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
And so, you know, it provides institutions which are having a hard time getting surgical masks, or institutions that are hard time getting N95 masks, you know, the opportunity to greatly extend the number of uses of the stock that they already have.
Cool.
So we have a question from Ted Gilchrist. Ted, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Because my connection isn't very good.
We hear you just fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I mean, I know nothing about 3D printing, and it sounds really fascinating what you're doing. It just makes me wonder, is there anything like the equivalent of a cloud platform, you know, where if you have an idea like this and you can just give your, whatever your software, whatever, to some shop that's set up for manufacture, and they would just do it, so you didn't have to do it in your garage?
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of service is called print on demand or manufacture on demand, depending on you know, the kind of manufacturing that you're doing, right? So there are services that do 3D prints on demand, and there are services that do injection molding on demand, and there are services that do sintering on demand. And so that was actually, you know, I never anticipated raising anywhere near the amount of money that we raised. And so injection molding on demand was an area which I spent a good bit of time exploring, and I met with, you know, a couple companies that, you know, do exactly that. And there's a couple reasons that, you know, I kind of decided to stick with setting up my own print farm. The first is versatility, right? So if, you know, I produce, you know, 1,000, 2,000 masks, and then, you know, 3 weeks from now, what I'm hearing from the institutions that we're serving is that, you know, we're good on masks. Thank you for your help. Right now, what we need is face shields, or right now, what we need is ventilator valves. If, you know, I were to spend 10 grand on, you know, hardened steel injection molds, I don't have the ability to just switch gears and start producing those. Whereas, you know, with my own print farm, that's super easy. And so it kind of allows us to stop, baby. It kind of allows us to be more flexible in what need we're able to help meet. And then the second is cost to total output. The lead time on making molds is very long, right? Because you have to design, a mold that you can shoot fluid into, and then you have to mill it out of steel, and then you have to do that, a couple hundred times, depending on, what size yield you're talking about. And then, there's, hi, baby. Yeah, you're very nice. And so lead time is an issue, and then upfront costs. So, with the printers that, kind of like the higher yield and the higher your purchasing power, the less and less 3D printing is, the right option, right? And the more services like injection molding or sintering make sense, because you can use that same mold to produce something much faster, many more times. But given the kind of yields that we're talking about, kind of in talking with these injection molding companies, I came to the conclusion that the price of the number of printers we're talking about and the price of the molds that we're talking about are within a close enough distance to each other that it doesn't matter too much. And given that we can produce the masks and have them ready much faster, if we go the 3D printing direction and the versatility argument, it was worth, a difference of about $1,000 to, have that option available to us.
So cool. I just think that this is a great use of, like, as you said, like you work retail. Like, I can't imagine a better kind of way for someone who has found themselves in unemployment, or either by choice or by or necessity, to kind of repurpose like their skills in their area. And like, I love that this could be a longer term project than just masks. I love that. I think that that's actually, I don't know. I think that that's a great use of like the purpose for which people donated the money and the GoFundMe. And I think that that's like a great long-term vision, hopefully, for this. Well, not hopefully that we're still doing this in like, for the long term, but you know what I mean?
I'm sorry?
Can you 3D print vaccines?
Unfortunately not.
Not yet.
That seems like what you should be working on.
There's all these, cool videos of like people in Italy from a few weeks ago 3D printing ventilator valves that, and like, God forbid, if we were to, be in a position where we're in a shortage of that in our local community, like that's, something that the farm would be able to help with. And so it's just having that, flexibility is super important.
Do you have a name for this organization yet?
Yeah, I mean, so I call it the Be Safe Project.
But what do you really call it?
So it started out as the Don't Die Project. But I
kind of like the straightforwardness of that. I Be Safe is maybe a little bit more positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were right to go with the Be Safe Project on the GoFundMe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely a more inviting.
But like, you could call it the Don't Die Farm. I mean, like that. If you stick farm on the end, it sounds a lot more positive.
Yeah, it's like the.
It'd just be like a mask, like sprouting out of the ground, like on a stalk with leaves.
All right. Thank you, Gabriel, for joining us.
This was so fun, Gabriel. It was really great to meet you. Go Pet Gurgi. Yeah.
Super excited for you all with the show. And thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
See you in a little while.
Bye-bye.
I love that you're going to walk downstairs or like upstairs and like hang out with him. And
yeah,
like...
he's down in the basement. I'm up in the top floor, and when I'm in 27 minutes when we're done with In Lieu of Fun, I'll go downstairs and, check on how the second printer is coming. So should we plan the show?
Yeah, let's plan the show. And
What are we
our
doing this
unofficial
week?
theme today should also, I feel like it should be the, I had a whole, hold on, I can't find my pencil. I had a whole list of people that have agreed, who want to come on the show, and are great and cool and wonderful. And I'm starting to think, and I wonder what you think about this. I was wondering if we should do like a theme week of like power couples. Hannah and Alan gave me the idea, but then I have like a bunch of like, but I was just, then I'm like, Radley Belko. Do you know Radley?
Only on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't think we've
Radley
ever
and
met.
his wife, Liliana, like Liliana does like incredible work for like Innocence Project and abolition of death penalty stuff. And so like, I was like, the two of them would be great together on the show. I mean, we could just have Radley, we could just have Liliana, but I was like, that would be fun. And then I started thinking about like Ezra Klein and Annie Lowry. I'm like, I don't know. It just is like, I don't know. Do you think that that's going to be too much?
I think it's a great idea, but here's the problem. Couples are harder to schedule as couples.
Oh, that's so true.
Because you can't just say, hey, do you want to come on? You have to like get a time when they both can do.
And also sometimes they have offspring.
Yeah.
And then it means that one can't be babysitting while the other is talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, my suggestion is we make the invites that way, but if like one of them says, I can't, like, we can only do one of us today, then we should, as we did with Hannah and Alan, do them on separate days, split up the couples.
Yeah, totally. So, do you want me to run through who I've talked about for next week, or who I've just kind of like picked?
Yeah, well, let's talk about, first of all, what are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow's mystery guest day.
Oh yeah, you have no idea what you're in for tomorrow.
How many mystery guests do we have?
We have two. I have scheduled two mystery guests in succession, not at they'll be at the same time, but like we're going to focus on one and then we'll do something with the other. You should wear workout clothes, Ben.
I know who this is.
I thought you might, but don't ruin it for everyone else.
Okay. I'm excited about this.
Yes. And then we have discussed having a llama on the show.
You just gave it away.
Well, that's kind of actually like, I just feel like, well, you know what? We don't know it's going to be a llama, so I haven't given it away. And there's like apparently like 25 animals to rent. And so like we could get any number of them and they're all individuals, Ben. And yeah.
All right. Well, that's tomorrow. So what are we talking about for Monday?
I was kind of thinking that it would be fun to have Oren Kerr and Scott Shapiro back on together. They've never met in person and they spar all the time on Twitter. And they are both kind of brilliant scholars, and it would
and they're both like super nice people.
And they're both nice and really funny. Like, yeah. So I thought it would
all right, so we could fun. We could play the Rocky. Oh no, we can't because they'll like ding us again for copyright violation. We can sing the Rocky theme.
Yeah, yes, let's sing. We'll have
actually. Did you know that the actual dun 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 that is not copyrighted because that is written. It is a fanfare by an anonymous Baroque composer for two trumpets. And it was appropriated by
Rocky
for the Rocky theme.
No, I didn't know that.
But it is actually it's actually Baroque, early Baroque. It's a fanfare for two trumpets, and so I think we probably can use that.
If it's not Baroque, don't fix it, Ben.
It's right. I believe that the name of the piece is Fanfare for Two Trumpets.
Okay. Well,
So-
I'm really glad that you just wrote that very compelling appeal to YouTube's notice and takedown regime. And like, we'll see what they say.
Yeah.
But yes. Okay. So see if Oren and Scott can do for Monday
or for any day.
or
So
Andy.
what?
Okay.
So yeah, do you think maybe the theme for the week should be setting up debates, like sparring matches? It
Right.
can be like sparring partner week.
Kind of like that would be fun. Like, what
So
about
who do
like
you want to spar with?
who do I want to spar with? Oh, that's a good question.
Like who's like somebody who's just like, whenever you see, you're like, damn, that
Oh.
person's just wrong all the time, and I really want an opportunity to spend an hour like figuring out,
telling them how wrong they are.
well,
Oh,
and also
God.
being like arguing with the person. Because maybe we should set up a week of like hyper confrontational.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Malcolm Gladwell,
We
you
get
want-
him on the show.
I hate your work, Malcolm Gladwell. No, I actually like Malcolm Gladwell's.
I mean, I'm sure he's a
podcast.
very nice person. I have like
I have no idea if
slight
he's a nice
problem with
person.
his methodology.
Yeah, of course, his methodology sucks.
Yeah. Or isn't there. So
Yeah, so you want to invite Malcolm Gladwell on to be argued with?
yeah, he's never gonna come on and argue with us, but we could try. We'll see.
No, look, I don't have a beef with Malcolm Gladwell. This is your thing.
You
should-
asked me this question. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, okay. I will ask Malcolm Gladwell if he'll come on Lieu of Fun show. He probably will not. In which case, who am I going to fight
Ooh,
with?
we have a good suggestion from Allison. Guest request. Can you get guests or will you discuss the upcoming SCOTUS audio broadcast?
Oh, yeah.
which is
You know
unprecedented?
who would be great for that is Leah Littman.
Or Dahlia Lithwick.
Or both. Yes. Actually, the two
both.
of them together would be great.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I've
Dahlia.
never met Leah Littman.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing.
But Dahlia's an old friend, and
I love
um,
Dahlia. She's
yeah,
fantastic.
she's great fun.
Dahlia would be perfect. Let's ask Dahlia, and like I'll see if, and I'm sure Leah would love to do it. I'll ask Leah. Okay, great. That's such a great idea,
Yeah, good idea, Allison.
Allison. When is that happening? Do we know? It's not. It's not Monday.
No, but it is not the end of time either. So we should get on that.
Okay.
I don't know what the argument date on that is. But
We
yeah,
think
we should
before. We think
definitely-
after. That or it should be the end of the day.
I still like the idea of like people in honor of the mystery guest tomorrow, like the idea of I gotta say, I love the idea of having a sort of pugilistic week.
Oh my God! Yes, the mystery guest tomorrow sets this up really wonderfully.
Exactly.
So does the other mystery guest, frankly.
Well, that's a mystery to me.
So
but,
that's like, yeah. So maybe llamas is not this week. This is not. That's not. Although those things spit in your eye.
I love llamas.
I love.
Did
them.
you know? Did you know? I learned
They're
this
excellent
only-
guard animals.
They're very. I find them. People say camels are unfriendly too, but I love camels. All right, so we want pugilism, but Dahlia and Leah Littman are not going to like beat each other up or anything.
Oh no, but we'll make it spicy. We'll figure
All right.
something out. I just like the tete-a-tete kind of idea. What about we have Nicole Wong and AMAC, Alexander McElvray from Twitter.
and so when's that happening?
That can happen this week, but we can do it whenever.
Okay.
You
know who I want to have on?
Who?
I want to have on an unapologetic Trumpist.
Do we know any of those?
Yeah, I know a few.
Okay.
I think we should have on my old
Who?
friend Mike Duran, who I've had a few arguments with on the Lawfare podcast, but they've all been about the sort of Russia stuff and the Mueller report, and
I actually
but
know
like-
someone in the administration right now. I know a few people, but I'm
They're
not.
not
They
gonna
would never
do
do
it.
this. Yeah.
yeah, but like having somebody on who's like a Trump supporter and like how but Mike is a very serious historian and a very bright guy, and like how are you feeling now? Like, I think that's a would be a really interesting conversation. And Mike's a he's an old Brookings colleague. He's not at Brookings anymore, but he's somebody that I've had a very kind of respectful series of interactions with over the course of the Trump administration, and I'm sure he'd be happy to come on and talk about it.
My next door neighbor here is a wonderful guy that I've known my entire life, since I've been like coming to this place for forever. He lives here year round. He was born and raised in Truro, Massachusetts. And so we're the last 3 generations of his family from the descendants from Portugal. And he is a total like Second Amendment, like Trump toting, like lover, like everything. One of my favorite people in the world. And he's a Trump supporter. His name is Buzz. And Buzz would probably love to come on and talk to Mike.
Bring on Buzz and Mike Duran, and let's.
It kind of feels like the highbrow and the lowbrow of Trumpists. Honestly,
well, that's diversity.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right.
Okay, love that idea.
More audience suggestions. Who do you guys want to hear from?
Mark Simon, Elvin says Mark Simon.
Media exec for Apple Daily newspaper in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, that is an interesting idea.
We could also.
I'm also getting text. I'm hearing personally on my thing from people who are writing that Pugilism Week is for the win. People, this is people like
Pugilism Week. Okay. So Sean Richardson says he wants to hear from Shane Harris. Shane, who, for those of you who don't know, is one of the Washington Post's intelligence correspondents, and is one of the partners. He's one of my closest friends and one of the partners in the Rational Security podcast. Shane has agreed to come on, and we just have not scheduled it. So, but I would not bring Shane on Pugilism Week, because Shane is actually a friendly and gentle person who is not like gonna take off the gloves and wail on somebody. So, but yeah,
Noah Feldman would be good in Pugilism Week.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe we could get him and like Marty Lederman to like fight it out. They argued the hell out of remember this whole thing? Like they argued like back and forth about like whether or not Trump had actually been impeached. And then Noah got retweeted by Trump. And then
we could just like put them. The thing is, like, since if we have them on, we would never get a word in edgewise. But
we don't need to be here.
Yeah, we could just say like ready, set, go, and then just like demote ourselves to the audience. I mean, Marty Lederman is actually a great idea, because Marty is, for those of you who don't know him, he's a professor at Georgetown and a longtime hand at the Office of Legal Counsel, and he's just one of the shrewdest. He's been
around. He's amazing. He's at Georgetown now.
He's at Georgetown, and he's an amazing combination of bureaucratic savvy and real constitutional and non-constitutional law expertise as pertains to the executive branch. And so that's a great idea to have Marty on to just kind of talk
Marty and Noah to just like go at it. That sounds great. What about
two people who really hate each other? Have you ever seen the movie The Best of Enemies?
Yeah, well, that would be like, well, I can think of it.
Can't we do that?
No, I've never seen that movie.
Oh, so The Best of Enemies is a movie about during the 68 Chicago convention, Democratic convention, one of the networks had as their two commentators, real-time commentators, Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley Jr.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've watched those debates.
Who famously hated each other, and they were on set together every night for hours, just seething at each other. And the movie
This is why I miss Christopher Hitchens. I feel like he had some fucking enemies. That man, like really, he cultivated them.
I think maybe maybe what's missing from this lovey-dovey period where we're all social distancing together and reaching out and touching is some really raw hatred. We should get some people who really actually object to one another as human beings for Pugilism Week.
So so we have a pretty law heavy focus right now. We've got Dahlia and Leah, we've got Oren and Scott, we've got Noah and Marty. But I'm going to throw out there Emily Bell at the Tao Center. And Emily is spicy and she's hilarious and fun and just like so smart.
So write to Emily and say,
who's your enemy, Emily?
Who's your enemy? We want you to go out there with the Rocky theme playing and just wail on somebody. Who do you want to take out?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll write to Emily and figure that out. We'll figure that out. That's so good.
Who have you always wanted to argue with about what? And let's bring that, let's just do that for Pugilism Week.
Yeah, and then maybe we have Mike Duran and Buzz on for if Buzz will do it. He might not want to do it. He's a very private
Mike
person,
Duran loves combat. He will
but I mean, they're not going to actually disagree about that much, I don't think.
No. But we'll bring on Mike to talk to us. That's,
okay. Mike to talk to us. Okay. So then we think we have our week. That's enough.
All right.
We'll do Nicole and AMAC because they agree about too much. They'll be our happy fun week. Before we start, though, our Pugilism Week, I would like to share the thing that happened to me this week that was absolutely lovely that we talked about. My tweet that resulted in basically the happiest thread that's ever existed on the internet. Maybe it's so I'm just gonna share my screen here for a second.
Pugilism Week nicey nice going on here.
Yes, it's super nicey nice. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's just it's like eating a lot of bread before Passover. We're heading into Pugilism Week. It's going to be all combat, so we got to have some puppies.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I actually think that's the most kind of perfect way to put it, frankly. Is this going to be the right thing? I can't tell. Hold on.
Ooh, anonymous attendee just says, not sure how he fits into Pugilism Week, but Gene Volokh would be great.
Eugene would be wonderful.
That's a really good idea.
That's really good. Where should we put Eugene? Eugene would be wonderful. People really disagree with Eugene. Let me think about other people. But he's wonderful. I love him. But he's kind of
he's also important godfather figure to lawfare, which I've never had.
Let's think about that. But I think that Eugene would be amazing. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's find a place to put him. I think that makes sense. No, definitely not with Emily. But if Marty doesn't want to do it or something like that, he would be fine with Noah or either or something like that.
All right. And we're going to do as many of these invitations as possible on Twitter because I think the Twitter exchanges are fun.
Okay. So.
All right. Show us your screen.
Yes, I'm doing it. And then, so on Thursday, is this showing? Yep. So on Thursday, I had a hard day and it was not because of anything having to do with, I'm still a very lucky person in all of this, recognize all of that, but I just was bummed about something that happened personally, having to do with my life. And I was kind of really down about it. And I just kind of put this out into the world. And I was kind of aware of that it was maybe a weird thing to do. And I got, I think, 275 replies of people sending me their baby photos, funny videos, really sweet things about citing my work, hilarious people to follow on Twitter, poems. Carrie Goldberg sent me a section about a really inappropriate, not safe for work section of a letter that her World War II grandfather sent to her grandmother.
Also want to point out that Carrie Goldberg versus somebody would be really fun on Pugilism Week.
Yes, that's true. And then that's actually a good point. We should think about that. And then like these, I love these. It just was like all of these, and then came all of the dog and cat pictures and like videos. And it just was like, I swear to God, and then I liked this. Someone just like gave a picture of their creepy mug. And they're like, here's our mug. I know. We think it's funny. Gaslit SCOTUS sent me their FBI like seized property sticker. Someone made Where's Waldo out of the empty photos of New York. And then like a rainbow. It goes on forever. And like, it was just so lovely. This was really in particularly lovely. Matthew Ingram sent me this picture of his youngest daughter with a baby lamb after feeding it milk. It was just like such a beautiful, hello cat. It was just like the whole thing was just like these, and I woke up the next morning and I was still pretty bummed. And I like scrolled through all of this and I just did not feel bad anymore. It just really felt great. It was I'm still scrolling. Here's like a cat in a garbage can that doesn't exist, that's on the chair. I don't know, like here's a dog in a couch. Here's baby birds. Oh my God, baby birds. The whole thing was just really beautiful. This was like maybe the best thing ever. This woman has a squirrel that she feeds that's named Sally. And I think you know that I used to have a squirrel. And so this was like very meaningful. But anyways, this is my squirrel that I used to have. That's Anne. But
how long did you have a squirrel?
For like 6 months.
Wow.
It was, I found it on a lawn, abandoned on a very cold May day. And I brought it home and was like, oh, it'll probably die. And then it just like didn't die. And then I started figuring out how to feed it, and then fed it from an eyedropper every 4 days or 4 hours for like a long time. Anyway, she was the best. Very miss her a lot. And then, but yeah, anyway, so my point is, this was just like this incredible, it was like just pure joy. And I just thought that it was, I thought that it was it was just kind of this wonderful thing. If you put stuff out into the universe, we had that funny letter from that guy, that contacted us after I sent him sourdough starter. And, I'm like, you just put this stuff out into the universe and like people give it back to you. And it's just it is buoying, and things are so shitty right now. And it's just kind of like, it's just really lovely to kind of have these moments. And I would just encourage people to hold on to them, because we're all going to lose our minds otherwise.
There you go. I have nothing to add to that except that, yes. All right. We have a show planned.
I'm super amped for this week. It's
masks being printed in the basement. We got an update from Hong Kong, by way of Ontario. And
I feel like we like having Alvin on was basically like getting a BBC broadcaster from
that's the thing about Saturday is we're going to plan the show, but we're also going to drag somebody in from the audience.
It's so fun
to do something like, sometimes it's Maggie, or sometimes it's it's Alvin, but we see somebody interesting there, we're just going to rapture them in, and I see you, Ted Gilchrist. We're going to rapture them in, and and like have a conversation. So we've got the week planned, the masks are printing, and we will be back tomorrow at this time, 5:00, with 2 mystery guests, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And as always, there is a coronavirus pandemic, and if you can't have fun, at least you can have fun with us in lieu of fun.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.